Hey there. I think I've figured out on the vertical modular washers by Kenmore, Sears, all those folks. They have a problem where this shifter, also known as actuator, fails. Now or it'll throw a code saying that it has failed. But I think I just figured out something that would explain the cause for why these things would fail. This is not failed, and I've been testing it today, and this does exactly its job. So up here, I actually disassembled things. We have this kind of drive gear there. The spring goes on here, this goes on here, and then this pops on here like this. And the whole idea of this shifter here is that when this is in place, this little arm can push this in, or let it kind of push itself out with this spring. So that's the idea. So here's what I just figured out. I just replaced all this and everything was working well. This was not shifting into the higher speed modes, and I was hearing it try over and over again to shift into a gear, and I was or shift into a different position on this shaft, but it couldn't do it. So I tried to do it with my hands. It didn't work. I tried basically, I was basically moving this part instead of this. I took this off. Tried moving this part by myself. I couldn't. I could only get up to a certain point and it would stop. But when I rotated this so that this part was actually on, you have two different positions. It's forcing this way or it's forcing this way. Basically, I forced it so it would go in the other direction, and let's see, which would be this direction, and it was easy to make it shift. But when it went the other direction, hard to make it shift. So I'm trying it right now, actually. It's very hard by pushing counterclockwise to make this thing push forward. But if I push to the right more clockwise, I can make that go up and down. And this has to do with its wear pattern. When this wears down, can I get more light on this? Let's see, maybe not. When this wears down, maybe you can see it in the video, I can't tell. Probably from agitate mode or something. This ends up getting chewed up on this one direction. It's getting chewed up in this direction. So this is lower than this. So when this tries to come in, these get hung up on a platform that gets created over time that makes it harder and harder to shift. As that happens, I think that this part breaks off, and I think that's why they'd fail. Now, knowing motors like this, these motors do not usually fail. It's usually whatever's on the other end of it. They usually don't fail. The windings usually don't burn up. These are impedance protected. When you see ZP, that means impedance protected. So it'll basically protect itself from overheating, overdoing anything. it'll just kind of give up progressively. So I think this is a very adequate motor. The only thing that could fail is this, I think. And this trying over and over again to push real hard to try to do this actuation motion. That was probably about that was probably about 30 pounds of force right there in order for me to do that. So what I'm going to try to do, and I am going to be quite displeased if this doesn't work, is I'm going to try to file these little platforms so that they're smooth. You can hear it. But if I go to the other side, it's smooth. So I'm going to try to make them so that they're smooth. I know that they are a bit worn down, but to replace this part, it's basically replacing this whole thing, and it's very expensive. So I'm gonna, not taking it lightly, trying to really just smooth it and nothing more with this. Try it out. That'll be my attempted fix. But regardless, I think this is the reason why these keep failing over and over again for other people. Okay, I just finished the filing. I started off with a file like this, kind of the rounded, and then just did the one side, but it was a little bit too large around the end. I kind of just ended up sort of plowing it. Then I realized that a plowing motion with a flathead screwdriver actually ends up removing enough material that really you kind of move it back and forth gently, but let it so that when it kind of binds up, you sort of scratch it off until it's smooth. So now this is mostly smooth as far as that's concerned. Yes, taking off material is going to reduce the potential lifespan of things like this, but really this has no lifespan if it doesn't work. So I'm able to put this on like normal, and I'm pushing it clockwise. Okay, works all right. The problem was counterclockwise. So you can see it still kind of snaps to a position, but it's hard to explain, but it's pretty easy to move back and forth now. I have a feeling like it won't be too hard to make the actuator work. I'm going to try it, test trial with the actuator on. Not to forget putting the spring on there first. So we're going to put that on there, and I'll be right back. Okay, this is one side note. I thought I was done, but once I put it all together with the pulley and everything else, I noticed that there was significant resistance still. Not as much as before, but so this thing right here, I got all this stuff. It's not OEM. It's just some cheap stuff from Amazon that happen to have the same part number that somebody made probably a copy of. Anyway, the plastic work on it was actually pretty poor. The quality was kind of poor, and the reason why I say that is that inside of this there are these little ledges right there, and let's see, there. You can see these ledges, okay. Those are to retain the ring that goes in there. It has these little ramps. These ramps make it so that it goes in and out, turning the rotary motion into a linear motion, making this come in and out. Anyway, these both mate together. This goes in here like that, and the problem was that basically as you move this back and forth, this had significant resistance. So those ledges were hanging up a little bit on, you can see in this reflection, you can see that there's a little line where the fin meets the ring portion. This, I actually filed it down a little bit already, but it was sticking out a lot, which is engaging against the ledges. This is much more smooth. It looks rough, but it's, I got rid of that. And then also this all had that kind of same effect, where there's just this little tiny piece that's kind of popping out. You can see a little bit of what I'm talking about from the side, because it's still there a little. Filing that down has made it so that the resistance is much lower for this, but that's something to look out for as well, that I did not expect right from the get-go, but it showed itself. Hope that you find that useful. Okay, I put it back together. Just so you're aware, people online are saying that these little tabs, if it's just slightly off kilter, that it causes a lot of problems. But anyway, it should push in and out pretty freely. And my original problem was that if I rotate it this way, it's hard to push. Or was it this way? Let's see. It was this way. But now it's decent enough. So when I use the actuator thing, you can see what the actuator does. It's basically the same movement, just happens to be coming from the side so that our actuator motor can do this. So even if I put pressure that way, we're fine. If we put it the other way, fine. So I call that a fix so far. I'll just have to see how well it washes. Because, I mean, it would go all the way through. It would do the wash cycle, it'd do the rinse cycle, it'd say cycle complete, but all my clothes were just so wet because it never got into the fast spin mode. And it didn't even tell me that that was happening. No error or anything. It completed everything just as it thought for some reason. But anyway, I could tell that it would make multiple attempts at shifting and fail. You could hear it try to shift, and then it maybe like go once like that, like an agitate, and then it would just give up. And then it would try it again maybe like a minute later. So yeah, I'm gonna put it all together. There are other videos and stuff out there for putting the pulley and all that back. Thought I'd share that with you. Have a good one.